What do you actually need to know about a brand to sell it on the internet? Spencer Line here. As per, you already know the vibes. Gully Garms was what I set up in 2012, and here on YouTube now giving value. And today's video I wanted to talk about what you need to know about brands in order to sell them on the internet. See, we live in this era now where people can quite quickly find brands and buy them and sell them, but what do they actually know about the brands that they're selling? And more importantly, what do they actually need to know about it in order to sell it online? One of the first and most important points to actually focus on is understanding the legitimacy and authenticity of the brands. When you start to sell a brand on the internet, you kind of need to understand garment tags, the history of the brand, and understand what fake tags actually look like. Essentially, if you're buying from a wholesaler or you're going out handpicking in the big wilderness that is car boots and charity shops, you're going to see a lot of different tags from the brand that you might potentially be looking to buy. But how do you actually get that knowledge about what fake tags are or what illegitimate tags are, or how do you actually understand the brands you want to sell? Let's take Nike, for example. Now, let's say that you want to sell Nike on the internet. You want to essentially understand as much as you can about the brand, what's real about it, all the different tags, and where do you actually start with that journey? Do you just go onto the internet and search, understand Nike? Do you watch a YouTube video on how to understand garment tags with Nike? Do you look for a book from Nike? What are the processes you can take to understand that the data and the information that you're actually getting is legitimate in itself? Now, one of the biggest things I think is good to understand is that community aspects really help you get a good idea and a feel for things quick. Now, seriously, what I mean by that is that if you are within community groups, Facebook pages, or certain places where people are discussing these brands, you will be around people who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Now, I don't mean this to advocate not working for yourself and not actually figuring it out yourself. I think that there's a lot of power and leverage in actually understanding the brands that you're selling and understanding what's legitimate and what's not. So let's take the example in question. Let's take Nike as an example, and let's think about what the process would be to understand this brand in order to understand how to sell it. For me, first things first would be understanding when Nike started and understanding the complete journey of the garment tag. I feel like, honestly, for me, you have to understand what's legitimate before you understand what's not legitimate. Because if your journey of cycle is to go and look at all the tags that aren't real first, when you go to look at the real tags, you're going to be pretty dubious of understanding. I mean, you might even doubt yourself even more on things that might be real. So you take Nike, for example. You take Blue Ribbon Sport as what it was called before Nike. Now, Phil Knight started it in 1967, started from Oregon, and over the course of its time went through lots of different changes. They went through changes with the design, for the way that Nike had its spell out, for the way that the swoosh looked, but most importantly, they had a lot of changes to the tags. Now, one of the things you have to note about a lot of brands, specifically like Nike, is that they have lots of different ranges and lots of different parts of their brand. So for example, Nike has Nike Athletic, it has Dry Fit, it has Storm Fit, it has Thermofit, it has Nike Running, it has Pro Combat, and these are in the actual athleisure side of Nike more so. It has the Nike Millers, it has Nike Casual Wear, it has a lot of the other parts of the brand that aren't just the active and sportswear. So you can look at a brand like Nike and go, blimey, there's so much to actually think about. Where would I even start with understanding it? And if I'm being totally honest, the best way for you to start with it is to go on the internet and understand the history of the garment tags. So say Nike isn't your brand, say it's Ralph Lauren, say it's flipping Adidas or Fila, whichever one, the process would still be the same. You've got to look for the brand, you've got to understand the history of the garment tags, understand the legitimacy and all the different parts of that brand. Once you understand the brand and you understand all the tags from said brand, then you need to understand what's legitimate about that tag. Are there different silver tags for US imported Nike versus the one that's made in the UK, or the ones that are distributed in the UK rather than distributed in America? Did Nike undergo any specific changes to their branding in their garment tags? And this is just to presume that you're selling one brand in particular. So if you want to understand and get into actually selling brands, this is the first thing that you have to do. There's a lot of people on the internet right now that couldn't give two shits about understanding the legitimacy of brands and understanding what they actually need to know in order to sell a brand. And for me, I think that that's the baseline importance of what you're actually doing. Understand the brands that you're selling by the garment tags that they have. So once you actually finally do the understanding of the garment tags, you can then start to understand the illegitimate ones and the fake ones. Essentially, you're doing all of this process and practice before you've even laid your hand on an actual Nike product. So you can see where the levels of the process really take. Because essentially, you don't need to touch an item of clothing until you've understood it online. And then once you understand it, or you feel like you have a better understanding of it, you can go into the car boots, the charity shops, and take that practice into account. You know, say Nike, for example, it'd be quite easy to go through all the different tags, understand where it's ever been manufactured throughout the years, and look for those countries. You know, Nike is one of those brands. It was made in Mauritius, it was made in Sri Lanka, it was made in Vietnam, it was made in all these like Eastern Asian countries and many more. And lots of them undergo so many different changes that you wouldn't even believe to the way that they produced in the countries due to the socioeconomics, the culture, the politics of it, everything. And like I say, this is just one brand. This is just one brand, assuming that you're only looking at one at a time. So what do you need to know to sell a brand? You need to understand the tags. You need to understand what's legitimate about those tags. You've got to understand the fake tags. You need to understand what countries they were actually manufactured in. And I would say that's a pretty good starting point to get your journey going. So guys, as always, let me be the secondhand sustainable advocate of being sustainable and advocating all that stuff. Also, call me MC Words. Guys, I'm here as a little reselling guy, the guru, whatever you want to call me, as somebody who wants to give you parts of thoughts of wisdom of what I've learned, what I've figured out, and what I think is valuable to know in a quick moment. Sorry for clicking my fingers. And I hope you have great flipping days, whatever it is, and I will see you tomorrow at 6:30. Keep doing you, keep trusting the process, and honestly, I need to get a lighter camera because it's so blooming heavy. In a bit.